My name is Zack Porter. I'm a mechanical engineer here at Pfadt Race Engineering, and I got a chance to spend a bunch of time underneath the C7, and I think the rest of the world, some good details here about the car the rest of the world don't know about. So first impression, lift the hood and take a look at the engine, and the thing is huge. It's really wide compared to the LS series, underneath what seems to be the same width in frame rail. And that's going to make it quite a challenge for a lot of the aftermarket world. It's going to be a tight fit for header manufacturers like us, and various other engine components, engine mounts and things like that. It's a big engine. It's made to fit in a truck frame, and they somehow managed to squeeze it between two Corvette frame rails. But it's going to work out well. So really took a look, kind of diving deeper. They finally heard us from the C5 and the C6 world and took the radiator and tipped it back forward. I don't know if it seems obvious to the rest of the world, but the radiator leaned back, no air goes through the radiator, and it's hard to cool the car. So they took the radiator and they tipped it forward, air goes back through the radiator and then splits. Now part of it does just like the C6R and the C5R and goes right out the hood and over the top of the car, and the other half goes from the cooler portion of the radiator, goes around the engine and out the bottom. Pretty ingenious. The other thing they did that all of us racers have done is taken the air intake and moved it away from in front of the radiator and away from all that heat and moved it off to the side, and they now pull air from the right front, right in front of the right front tire, right near where the brake ducting is. Just like on the C6. The next notable thing under the hood is the big open space. Just to the left front of the engine. I took some time kind of taking some measurements and really thinking about it, and I think in the future that's where our turbochargers are going to go. Hopefully GM is already well on that. It looks like that's what it's for. Just something of note. The other things seem notable. The dry sump location just in front of the passenger, a window cowling, that's pretty common in the race world and in the C6 world. It's back there again. Easy access to most of the fuses and all the things up on that right front side. But again, that engine with those new heads that are wider and lower to use the direct injection technology that came from the LT world, it's going to be really difficult to get access on that side. So we'll see what happens in the aftermarket world. Moving on to underneath the car, putting it up on the lift and taking a look. Engine oil cooler. It's always been an issue in the Corvette world. The exact same engine oil cooler that's on the Camaro, the Generation 5 Camaro, the ZL1. It's the exact same oil cooler, just turned 90 degrees and tucked farther up underneath the engine. Seems to work pretty well in the Camaro. Hopefully we see some cooler oil temperatures here on the Corvette. Sticking to coolers, they finally took the word of the C6 and C5R world and put a trans and diff cooler dedicated in good air on the car. On the rear of the car, you'll notice there'll be two ducts on the left and right side, just rear of the pillar. Those are functional air ducts. Those have been all over the radio or all over the media, and those are functional air ducts. Inside the rear fenders are the trans cooler on the left side and the diff cooler on the right. That air is then ducted over both those coolers and then out through cowlings in the rear fascia and in the rear taillights. That's a high pressure zone there on each side of the car, and that should, and low pressure behind the car, so that should really actually provide some decent functional cooling for the first time. Other notable things from the bottom of the engine, oil pan looks really similar to the C6 that were dry sumped. Both lines run off to the right, just like before with the dry sump tank. The bell housing and all the tie-in points look really similar to what we've seen before. But one thing of note, that the subframe, though still aluminum and cast aluminum, looks smaller, a little more compact, a little more forward on the car, which should make packaging of some header systems and some other aftermarket parts a little easier. Moving rearward on the car, from underneath again, traditional mid-pipe and a trans-tunnel brace, pretty elaborate piece of aluminum. Looks pretty cool. Nobody's ever going to see it, but it looks pretty functional. Same rear subframe and mounting locations, everything looks really similar in the rear. Again, smaller subframe though. Something of note, the over-axle assembly on the Z51 has two sets of controlled valves. One, like we're used to on the C6, that wide open throttle pass through the mufflers for a great exhaust note and lots of flow. That's pretty traditional and looks the same as on the C6. On the over-axle assembly all the way at the top is an what appears to be electrically controlled valve again. That's used, from my understanding, in eco modes on the car. There's 7 driving modes, one of them being eco mode. During cylinder shutdown, during the displacement on demand and active fuel management, that will then be throttled shut, I'm assuming, to maintain back pressure on the engine and to not have this huge open droning 4-cylinder with 4 shutdown cylinders. Should help keep the car quiet and a little more efficient, and what's going to give it that 31 mile per gallon rating. Still with the car up on the lift, taking a look at the front and rear suspension. New rear and front upper shock mounts. They're the same all the way around for the BWI mag ride shocks that are now on the car. The leaf spring, still transverse leaf spring front and rear. I think everybody's pretty aware of that. Look out for Pfadt coilover stuff to come with the use of the mag ride technology. I think there's some really special stuff we're gonna have for you there. All in all, the car looks good. It's got a really advanced direct injection truck motor stuffed between the frame rails of tried and true Corvette sports car technology that then was adapted and continues to get better, just like the C5 was better than the C4, the C6 better than the C5, and now the C7 sure to be better than the C6. Be on the lookout for our P58 package, headers, cold air intakes, some tunes, and for you C5, C6 guys that aren't ready to quite upgrade yet, we got you covered too.